Welcome to Anabolic Evolution, the podcast where muscle meets mindset. This is Matt Twigg, joined by my friend and fellow bodybuilding enthusiast, Craig Humble. Every episode, we dive deep into the world and history of bodybuilding, from the science of muscle growth to the art of achieving your ideal physique. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or just starting your fitness journey, join us as we explore the transformative power of bodybuilding. Let's evolve together and strengthen spirit. Tune in now and explore the limits of what you thought possible. Hey, Craig, how you doing? Good to see you again.
I'm good, Matt. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Okay, so this time around, I want to switch things up.
All right.
I'll be the interviewer, and I'd like to ask you about how you got started in bodybuilding, because, we've discussed this a little bit in the past, and your background and the way that you got involved is very, very different from the way that I did. And I think it's important that people understand that it doesn't really matter where you start from.
Yeah.
There are many different ways that we all get started in this, and
Absolutely.
eventually, whatever we end up falling in love with it for some strange reason, and here we wind up. So how did you get started in this?
So how did I get started? Let's see. I started, I think, a bit earlier than you. Listeners may recall your story from last time. I started bodybuilding effectively, what I would call at 15 years of age. And that happened largely because I was kind of like a skinny fat kid. Not athletic because I had asthma, still have pretty bad asthma, so it limited my athletic abilities. And I was probably a little bit not happy with my body image, and I wanted to, get bigger, stronger, maybe a little athletic. My dad was a football player in high school. That's just high school, but he still worked out. I think he still works out now in his 70s in the gym. Although my parents divorced at an early age, he left a bench and some weights around the house, and I picked them up, started playing with them. And I think it didn't take very long, actually. Probably by 16, people in junior high school were kind of like, what are you doing? Why is this Twig kid who used to give a hard time getting big? He's going to fight us or something like that. And I was like, oh man, totally not interested. I just wanted to.
I was so jealous.
Do more. I think it was by 17, I remember, and I think it was auto shop class. I was cutting my sleeves like Sergio Oliva style because my shirts were too tight in certain areas. Sounds really childish back then, but that's where my head was at.
Not at all, man. Cut my sleeves. Like I still don't have to do that. Like I buy the shirts with the smaller sleeves.
Intentionally, yeah. Yeah, that was like 15, 16 years old. So just starting. I had a great public library in my hometown. I would go there, and they had a huge assortment of bodybuilding books for some reason. So I would everything from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia, which I bought and owned, but they had all the old books of that era by Butler and other people, books like Ripped and Beef It, and they had Columbo's book on training. They had Tom Platz's book on training, Mike Mentzer's books. Everybody, so I just read everything. And then I would go home and try to do everything. I built kind of a home gym with those old cement-filled weights, probably like 16 years old. In my, I grew up in a New England farmhouse in Massachusetts, and we had like a big, what we call a moo cow barn, which was renovated. No more moo cows, but we put cars downstairs. And I kind of took over one side of that and set up a bench. My mom got me a machine with like a pec deck attachment on it. A bunch of, like I said, cement-filled weights from Sears Roebuck catalog at the time. I just started going at it. I had put pictures of Muscle and Fitness all over the walls. I had Arnold and Franco and people like, more contemporaries at the time, like Bertil Fox, getting into Barry DeMay, that era, late 80s, early 90s, still late 80s. And just, I made good progress at home, frankly. I think I was lucky to get good genes from my parents. My mom is half Sicilian. My dad is English, and he has decent amount of muscle for an English guy. I mean, Dorian Yates was an English guy, so
yeah, I got all the bad part of the English gene.
Yeah, the bad part. I got the fair skin. I can't tan, but the muscle genes were okay, So I just kind of went all in on that, and then I found out that the football coach at the high school, besides pestering me to join the team all the time, which I did not want to do because I just did not like traditional athletic sports, was not my thing. Okay. I joined his gym at least. He had a gym downtown, like a 15-minute walk from my home, fortunately. And that was about, I think, maybe like just barely 17 at the time. So you were talking earlier about how difficult it was to get in the gyms back then. This is a little easier, maybe because he was, a high school football coach, And I went in there and trained with one of my high school friends. And we made even more progress in a real gym, it's kind of funny thinking about that gym, because that was a gym where we had those dumbbells that were cast iron with two giant balls on the ends, that kind of old gym stuff,
nice.
And that's where I trained, probably make my first real gains, because I was doing workouts right out of the books, probably overtraining as a young guy, but you're young, you can kind of compensate for that by just being young, right? You'll recover. My diet was kind of like, I knew I had to eat a lot of protein. I remember doing things like Tom Platz recommended a dish, like a casserole dish of tuna fish, rice, and raisins that you would cook in the oven. Exactly, right? But probably nutritionally wasn't bad, So I kind of was doing some right stuff,
I gotta take that one off.
Take that one off. Yeah, I haven't eaten it since. That stayed in the past. That has not come with me to the current day. That's for sure. But I was doing okay nutritionally. Didn't know what I was doing, but I had some guidelines. I just took stuff straight out of the books and tried to apply it. Read some magazines. It was only Muscle and Fitness back then. Flex wasn't out yet.
Right.
I think Muscular Development might have been around. Iron Man was definitely around.
Iron Man,
yeah. So you read those old magazines, and take whatever I could from training, nutrition, whatever, and try it all. And like I said, I spent probably a couple of years at that gym. I actually broke my first piece of equipment at that gym. I broke their hack squat. I put enough weight on it that the center tube ruptured and peeled off the base. And fell over backwards, and I was so proud of myself, while also feeling really bad that I broke equipment in the gym. But the coach didn't care. He was like, "It's okay, don't worry about it." I think he was probably.
I think, given that he kind of gave you a little bit of special treatment, I bet you he was more proud of you than anything.
I think he probably thought it was kind of cool. If I think now, if I went to the gym and I had some 17-year-old kid breaking my equipment, good on you, kid. That's good job. Yeah. So that was my first gym, my first sense of real progress as a bodybuilder. Because right from that age, like I said, I had pictures up on my walls. I knew I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I didn't know anything about competing, so that's what the big guys did. So I just wanted to go into the gym, work out hard because I loved it, make progress because it was happening. To a certain degree, at least. I was getting bigger and stronger. I think I started out like 140 pounds at 5'8" I was probably like 5'6", 5'7" at the time, though, because I was mid-teens. And by the time I went to my first real gym when I was 18, just a couple of years later, when I was starting to go to university, I was up to about 185, 186 pounds. So, about 30, 40 pounds of muscle. It was pretty good. And that gym was where I first started really understanding what bodybuilding was about. Besides something I read about in magazines, I went to a gym that suddenly there was competitors in the gym. And the main owner was a competitor, and his part owner of that gym was an NPC judge from Massachusetts. Okay. And another guy at the gym, an older guy who I didn't know at the time, who turned out to be both the NPC regional head judge and my father's football high school coach. I did not know at the time, was at that gym. And he strongly, with other people, encouraged me to do a contest. And I really had no idea what I was doing. I just said, okay, I guess I'm kind of good at this. People who are smarter than me are telling me I should do it. So maybe I should do it, and like you said, I
can assure you that absolutely nobody has ever said that to me.
Well, like you said, different backgrounds, right?
I've never heard those.
I think I was just lucky. Thanks, mom and dad, for the genes. That's pretty much it. Like one of my friends at the gym used to say, he is a bigger guy. He had been to Junior USAs and the USAs and stuff, and people used to ask him, "You work out?" He's like, "No, my dad's Superman." Just a straight face, the ultimate genetics. I didn't work out, just born this way. People are like, huh? I couldn't say that. I didn't feel right saying that. But I guess I got a decent genetic hand. I think I did things right from an early age because I read so much. And the books back then wasn't like internet garbage of just random stuff. I mean, to write a book, it had to be kind of legit, so I think
a publisher actually had to publish it.
Right? Exactly. There's some vetting, right?
Throw it up on a website. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think because of that, my foundations are pretty solid. I didn't make a lot of mistakes at a young age. Probably trained too much volume, if anything. In my young age, trying to copy Arnold Schwarzenegger 6 days a week at 16. You know what I mean? Probably too much. You know. But I always was keen on listening to people who knew more than me. And at that gym I mentioned, which was Universe Gym in Quincy, Massachusetts, sure, it's long gone. The people around me knew what they were talking about, so I just listened to them. From, you know, you should do a show, to, you know, you weren't hard enough, you need to learn how to diet after I'd finished that show, you know, things like that. Always listening.
You know, that's really great to hear. That's actually like one thing that I kind of ran into in the gym today was there's a guy there, an American guy. I haven't met him before, but he was talking with a younger guy, and he was saying to him that he thinks that he saw that the guy was like really going after trying to push record type weights.
Yeah.
And he said to the guy, he was like, what you should do is you should do a strength day and a technique day, right? Where you do like, you know, 3 or 4 sets of 15 at a weight that you can execute perfectly. And then you're going to be better recovered for the next time when you go for the strength stuff. And I thought, wow, that is super advice. And how nice was it to see, you know, somebody with a bit more experience that's older sharing that knowledge? Because I feel like in gym culture these days, that's not as prevalent as it used to be at one point, because everybody's a bit more stuck in their phones and trying to do everything themselves. So I like the way that this guy was jacked. So it's like, you know, when someone who is jacked, who is a credible source, you know, goes out of his way to help the next generation, I think is really good. And as old guys, particularly old jack guys, I think that, you know, we need to find a way to do that without being, you know, obtrusive.
And coming across as like we know it all too. Exactly. Yeah, you gotta be careful about that. Yeah. I mean, no. Yeah,
that you had that environment, and I miss those. You know, I miss those because I feel like we don't necessarily have that same sort of camaraderie that we used to in a lot of these more specialized bodybuilding gyms that they used to have.
Yeah. It was a great gym. It was definitely a lot of camaraderie, a strong brotherhood. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody's happy to see everybody come when you walk in the gym. Hey, so and so. Hey, so and so. Come over, shake your hand, pat you on the back. You know, good to see you, man. How's the workouts going? And then always some playful teasing. Yeah. Like if you look small, we always say, "What are you getting ready for the Crystal Light Classic?" It was always like that was the line. Always a Crystal Light Classic. The Crystal Light was a diet drink back in the 1980s. Yeah.
No, I drink it.
Yeah, so that was a joke. You must be really skinny. But there's so many guys in that, and there's always someone competing in that gym. You know, 2 or 3 people doing shows in Massachusetts. Nice. In Massachusetts at the time, I say. So my first contest, because of all those guys supporting me, was the Massachusetts, was the 1988 Massachusetts State Drug Free. It was called Massachusetts State Drug Free. Wow. You know, that was the time that it was, right? And it was held at the MIT Kresge Auditorium. And there was no teenage class. So I, at 18, went and competed with men. Nice. And I got 5th place, posing to LL Cool J. Again, telling you the time, the era, right? You know, but it was fun. And while I'll be honest with everybody, I'm not a huge fan of competing. It's not my thing. I'm kind of a reserved guy. I love to train, but I'm not big on getting out there in front of people. That said, I did want to do it again because I wanted to be better. Nice. I want to deliver a better package and prove. And when I, you know, the head judge, who was my father's football coach, was the judge of that contest. And he came to me and told me everything I needed to know, what I got to improve on. You get a pose. And he said, stop twisting. You're not Frank Zane, you know, do a straight double biceps and things like that, you know? So I learned a lot from people who knew a lot more than me. And I was super interested in how to get better, because this thing at a very young age, I found out I was pretty good at a time where being this kind of formerly skinny, fat kid with asthma, couldn't really perform athletically, found my thing.
Yeah, great.
That I was doing better than most people at, you know?
That must have really felt good.
It felt fantastic. And like, I think even at that early age, I was already learning about setting goals and long-term vision versus short-term vision. And, you know, a diet months away, like you have to plan things out. And that I took to me later on in professional life when I joined finance like you, although I was in the technology side. still, like everything I learned those early days about how to plan out a diet, how to be disciplined, how to be consistent, how to do things in stages, how to have short-term goals versus long, it all came from that time in my life, you know, and it just got strengthened, and later on in life and work, that kind of reinforced back on itself, and everything got stronger over time. But it all started with that first show when I was 18 years old. Yeah, the bug bit me, I think, as you said last time, the bug bit me. And next time I wanted to do a real show. So I competed it was 1989, still a teenager, 19 years old. I wanted to do the teenage nationals, the NPC nationals, student high from the beginning, right? Go to the nationals, you know, why not? You know,
I can't imagine that.
Yeah. Teenage qualifier, teenage, you know.
Still though, I mean, you know, the scene in the US is huge, right?
Yeah, it was already huge back then. Yeah. And for people who don't know, like listening at this time, like this was the late 80s, early 90s. This is a time in America you could turn on the TV on ABC Sports and see the Mr. Olympia. I mean, it was there. I mean, it was part of our culture in a way it's not really now. Like we have a very strong social media culture, but that time was almost mainstream in some ways, you know? So it was a really exciting time to be involved. And I'll talk a little about that more about later, the TV stuff. But yeah, so I wanted to go to the nationals. I had to do a qualifier. So I did the New England Championships, which was held in the John Hancock Tower in Boston. And I went in there, not a lot of teenagers, but I managed to win the light heavyweight class. And the heavyweight was
open light heavies, or is that teen?
It was teen. I didn't do men's. I did only teen.
Right.
Yeah, because I had some sense that I wasn't good enough yet at that time as a teenager, you know. But I came in as a light heavy. I weighed like 188 on stage. So I probably could have done men's if I wanted to, if I had enough courage. But I was beaten by Donnie DeMeo, and if that name means something to some people, it's because Paul DeMeo's little brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So he beat me, and he beat me mostly on legs, if you can imagine. Great arms too, but he had legs. So I lost to him, but that sparked the desire to go even harder, and especially train legs harder, which I did bring up in the next year. But I do remember his brother was one of the judges on the panel, and we had really close mutual friends, and they told me that Paul had me down beating his brother.
Wow.
So to hear that, I was like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing this. You know what I mean? You know, it's a tremendous encouragement to hear someone.
When you get that feedback, right? Like when you're competing and you hear something like that, and you get like, so that goes back to, I think I had mentioned when I was talking about my background, it's that support and encouragement that you get from the community, you know, that really made me want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like
people are really nice.
Yeah. No. And it's just so opposite of what the stereotype actually is, right?
Absolutely. Like I say, like the gym at that time, everybody was awesome. I mean, they're all like your brother. You know, there was nobody there who was unpleasant. Everybody was happy to see you. You were happy to see everybody who went there. It was fantastic. And even like when I met my first pros, like at that show I did, that was the New England Championships, Phil Hill, if anybody remembers Phil Hill, was the guest poser. Nicest guy. Wow. He was so nice. And when I came on stage, he's like, "You look great out there." So much compliments and stuff. And
amazing.
I don't know if he was full of it, but he did it with a straight face, and he convinced me.
Does it really matter though?
Right. It makes you, it's about how you feel.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
No, and you walked out of there inspired, right? And
absolutely
ready to kill it, and you have. So
So I guess it was the right thing. I guess whether it was true or not, I believed it, and that got me set to go to. It was only 6 weeks later to do the NPC Teenage Nationals in New Jersey. So that was the first time I flew as an adult at 19 years old.
Wow.
Got on an airplane with my girlfriend at the time. Flew down to Jersey. Got a hotel. Checked in. My listeners may or may not know my last name is Twigg, as in like the smallest branch on the tree with 2 G's, not 1. And the check-in guy's like, "No, what's your real name?" I was Twigg. You know, so, I checked in with that. A bunch of us funny boys. I was
for a show, right?
190-pound teenage kid with all pro tanned and shit like that. You know, let me in. But that show, that was the 1989 NPC Teenage Nationals. I still have a video I stole from YouTube of one of the tapes they did. So I got to put that up someday. But that's also the year that Chris Aceto did the collegiates. So he was there walking around someday. I didn't see him the same show. And I got sixth there, which is kind of just right out of the money. For the light heavyweights was a big class. It was like 20 something kids.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. But that was a show like around that time. I think in between those two shows, I got a phone call from Lou Zwick, who was the producer of the American Sports Network and Muscle Magazine TV show that was carried on ESPN back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
He kind of like scouted me. Like he asked me to send him pictures, and he called me the morning of the show, offered his encouragement before I went out on stage. And after the show, he called me to ask how I did and stuff, get me motivated. And I think that point was kind of a turning point in my career, because it was kind of like, okay, as a teenager, had to jump to men's, whole different world, right? I had this guy on the West Coast telling me, you know, you're great, you can be better, we want to do something with you, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, he found out that I was in university. I went to university originally for exercise science.
Okay.
But my university, being a state school, lost funding and canceled the course before I could finish. And yeah, I know. Yeah. I didn't have enough money to go to a different school, so I had to choose something. I went to English, which I love to write.
Okay.
So I was writing, and this guy, Lou, he found out, oh, you can write. He's like, send me some of your work. So I sent him a short story I did. He's like, come work for me. I was like, what? He's like, honestly, kid, bodybuilding at that time, late 80s, early 90s, I think it was like 1990 at that time. There's no money in it. You know, very few people get paid. You know, you should do something better with your life. So come work for me. So I ended up working for ESPN and writing for Muscle Magazine, American Muscle Magazine. And had a couple interviews. I followed Sean Ray, I think it was in 1990, through his Mr. Olympia prep, and wrote him a script. I would call him up, talk to him, and then from that, make a script that he read on air the next week for every episode, up until he went to the stage. And I did a similar one-off for penny price. And I really enjoyed that. And I was still part of bodybuilding. I hadn't given up on being a pro yet, but I thought maybe there was better places to put my energy. And like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of being on stage, but I was definitely a bodybuilder. I wanted to be involved, you know.
There's one thing that I want to jump on there. Talking about becoming a pro. And I know that there are a lot of people that have aspirations of becoming pros now. Yeah. But let's kind of, just to put it in perspective, in the years that you're talking about, how many people per year would turn pro?
Yeah, this is important. We can do a whole show of this sometimes, but I want people to understand.
At some point.
Yeah. At that time, to my knowledge, of course, it was only bodybuilding then. There was no classic, no physique, nothing else, just body, not even a 212, just bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, the only way you could go pro is to win the NPC Nationals or the NPC USA.
Right.
That's it. Now, two cards.
Was it classes? So that was the overall.
I think it was just, I don't think you had to win the overall to get a card back then.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you were the best, light heavyweight, best heavyweight, whatever, there was no super heavyweights yet. You had to beat everybody else who won their class to get that card.
Wow, amazing.
So there are very few. Like going back into the past, of course, maybe because my first name is Matt, somehow I connected with Matt Mendenhall, who was a great back then.
Okay, yeah.
He was a fantastic bodybuilder. Never turned pro. You guys who haven't heard about him, go Google his name and take a look at his pictures.
Yeah.
Guy was freaking amazing. He never turned pro. He would get a card today in like a weekend, no problem. Things have really changed, and that's not to disparage today's pros, but there was so many people competing for that one card, work all year for one show, one chance, maybe two, the USA's and the Nationals, and that was it. So I was looking at that like, this is a hard way to make a living.
Indeed, yeah.
And if the guy who runs the bodybuilding show, whose job is to promote bodybuilding, says it's really tough, then maybe I should listen to him. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I kept bodybuilding after that the mid 1990s, but I didn't compete at all.
Right.
Never stopped training. I loved training. I loved eating right. I loved looking and feeling the way I was. So I kept doing that. And then, like you, I ended up moving to Japan, though much later in my life. I came to Japan in 94, left, came back in 95 with my first wife in the mid 90s. And I went to a gym that was owned by a former Mr. World in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, if you do a contest, you don't have to pay. I was like, Okay. And like you said back then, even then it was expensive. I think it was like about 13,000 yen, for a month, which is not terrible, but this was like a closet of a gym, tiny little place.
No, and
So,
back then that was really expensive.
yeah, it was real money anyways for me, So yeah, so I said okay. And so I trained and dieted for the Mr. Saitama contest in 1997.
Right.
And again, Lou Zwick and I were still in touch at that time, the producer, and he told me, that's great, keep me updated. By the way, Dennis Newman's going to come out and be the guest poser. I'm going to hook you up with him, get together, before he gets on stage and hang out together and have some fun. Okay, great. So Dennis Newman comes backstage, and I'm there with my ex-wife walking around, and this is after he recovered from leukemia. He looked like Superman. I mean, you've seen Dennis Newman, just this monstrous, incredibly good-looking guy, 6 foot something, towering over me. We're just chatting like backstage, and everybody thought we were both guest posters. I heard.
Oh wow!
From the competitors. So when I came backstage to get ready, they're like, "Oh no!" Like,
well, I mean, it's like back in '97, right? Like,
yeah, '97.
Weren't nearly as many, Westerners in Japan as there are now.
Yeah,
and especially like competing. You must even now the amount of Westerners competing in the Japanese shows is very, very few.
Yeah.
So like it's that must have really blown some people's minds.
Yeah. There was 2 of us. It was me and one guy from Tochigi.
Right.
I remember that was it. And he looked like a regular dude in like little underwear. Basically, no offense to the poor guy, but yeah, and I must have been 20 kilograms heavier than the other guys.
Right. Wow.
But this was the JBBF, which is a very political organization in the mid-1990s.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting 3rd, which was kind of funny because the magazine published pictures. I think it was an Ironman with Dorian Yates on the cover. I still have it back at home somewhere in the States. And you can see us in the dais 1, 2, and 3. And it's like, really? Okay, and one of the JBF guys came up to me off stage and he's like, "Please come back next year," in Japanese. I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Okay. All right." Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah. That would put a pretty sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like,
had trouble with that.
Yeah, I would never go back to that. And I didn't compete again after that for quite a long time. I ended up moving back to Japan in 1997 2007. When I took a job here with a finance company, which I've been working with up until shortly before now. And around late 2010s, bodybuilding kind of started to resurge in Japan. We haven't really, not even resurged, but
that's when I got it.
Yeah, you got into it, right? It really started to take off. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And a buddy at my gym, again, I'm still training. I'm still a bodybuilder. I'm still always about 225 pounds at 5'8", always pretty lean. My friend told me that, there's contests coming up and Hide Yamaguchi is promoting it, and it's a potential for a pro card. It's called the Japan Pro Qualifier. And I was like, huh. Let's see what this 47-year-old guy can do,
Nice.
I had to do a qualifier, and I chose the Beef Sasaki Classic. Back in 2018, and I dieted pretty hard. I hadn't done a diet in 19 years before that. Did the diet, did the tanning, got on stage with some guys good 20 years younger than me.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. Barely made it underneath the 198 cutoff, the 89 kilogram limit, and I won, which is a good feeling, to come out of retirement like that and win. I did the Masters too because I didn't know how it was going to pan out, so I won the Masters as well.
Oh, nice.
Got 2 trophies. Qualified for the Japan Pro. Went to that just a couple months later. Got 4th, I think. We had kids to me, most of us younger. Came from all over Asia. We had the winner was from Korea. 2nd place was from Hong Kong. Guys I still keep in touch with on social media.
Yeah, nice.
And I got 3rd, right? I think I got 3rd. Yeah. Anyways, can't remember. But it was a great experience, anyways. And I still had that fire of like, what can I do better?
Yeah.
So next year came around. I tried to do better. The downside of that experience was I got food poisoning backstage at that show, the Japan Pro, and it definitely messed up my gut bacteria semi-permanently. Never really recovered from that. I've always had bloat that I haven't been able to get rid of. The only time it's gone away is much later. I had an injury, which we hit on a little bit earlier. I was hospitalized for a while, got IV antibiotics and my stomach went down. So it's definitely a gut microbiome problem
interesting.
that I can't get a handle on. but despite that, I wanted to go back and see what I could do. So I went back again in 2019, did another show. It was called, I think it was the Japan Open. That was in Yokosuka in October. I got third place, which was okay because I had lost control of my waist. So I kind of knew it was going to hurt me. There's nothing I could do about it. I mean, I had the beginnings of a hernia and diastasis recti because of the bloating, plus the weight loads I was lifting. I was lifting really heavy.
All right.
Yeah. And that, okay, fine, whatever. So I decided at that point, I'm going to do the Amateur Olympia just to do it.
Yep.
I'm just going to do the Masters. I don't care about the pro card anymore. Just one swan song. I was going to turn 50 exactly a week after the show.
Oh, wow.
Well, what a great way to bow out, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I did that. I got second Masters, which I was happy with. One guy, only one person beat me on that stage. So that felt good. And and after that, I hung up my trunks, but never hung up the desire to bodybuild. And I still, to this day, train as hard as I ever did.
Sure. I mean, if anyone hasn't checked you out on social media, definitely should. It's what is it? CMT Physiques, right?
CMT Physiques. Yeah, thanks.
and like, I mean, when you look at Matt, you're just like, you're how old? It's
I'm
funny.
55 this year for everybody. 55
wow.
in a few months. So
just talking about the way that you have to diet down so hard to get to light heavyweight. It's like I'm at this weight where like my classic limit is just below the limit of light heavy. So if I'm going to move up a weight division, it's actually moving out of classic into light heavy. I just can't get big enough. I try and I can't get there. Meanwhile, we got you. We're not that different height wise. You're a little bit taller, but
all right.
Well, on paper, I guess.
On paper.
But and it's just amazing that I always I hear these stories of people like, oh, I had to try so hard to make weight. Like I literally never had that.
You go the other way. Yeah. I guess, I mean, it's funny. I think I mentioned, I started I did the light heavyweight class in the New England Championships in 1989. And I did the light heavyweight class in 2018 and 2019. They've been pretty much the same size.
But that's actually really interesting though, right? Because a lot of people think that obviously, you have to gain weight and stuff, but I'm sure that your look must have been dramatically different. So it would be neat to hear. I mean, not necessarily right now, maybe this is something for some other time, but it would be really interesting to hear, what sort of differences you had at the different weights, or at the same weight 20 years apart.
What was different? Yeah. Sure. And I'll just drop a note on that. I won't go into it, but big things was a lot harder when I was older because I knew how to diet better. I learned a lot more than when I was 19. Obviously, I hope I did in that time. I learned more. And because of my age, and I hadn't been focusing on them, my legs were a good deal smaller than they used to be. After I lost to Donnie DeMeo, Paul DeMeo's brother, I focused on legs, and I got my legs up to about 32, 33 inches off season. Wow. So I was waddling around like a penguin, eating up my pants in between, breaking car seats. So, and it was just not practical. So once I stopped competing, I kind of let them go down a little bit, and they didn't want to come back at 48 years old, but I did focus on the old maxim from Lee Haney's days with the Olympia's one from the back. So I said, I'm going to make my back as thick as I possibly can.
Yeah, nice.
And I added significant tissue to my back in my mid-40s for that show. And everybody at the contest was like, what's up with this kid's back? What's up with this guy's back? And they're talking about back. So I guess it worked. And so there's somewhat of a muscle weight transference as well as hardness. So the weight was about the same, but like you say, very different look. And we can talk about that some other time. But yeah.
Great. So that brings us to you bowing out gracefully. In the number 2 slot, not a bad place to go out, what's been happening since then? Like you mentioned before that you didn't stop training, so I'm pretty sure you didn't stop training. And also I've seen you on Instagram, so I know you're not. But what have you been up to since then?
Yeah, I mean, I'll never stop training. I think it's very much part of who I am. So I started so early. It's shaped my life, not just my body and my mindset. So I'll definitely keep doing that. What I've done recently is, coming at 55, I've kind of considered myself to be semi-retired from corporate world, and I'm putting all my energies into coaching.
Oh, wow.
You know, which is, I think, something we share, like a passion for sharing our knowledge, teaching people. So I've always taught people since I first knew anything, what I knew to help them, you know, any kind of, you know, avoid mistakes or save them time. I just was really eager to help them. I love teaching people, like whatever it is, if it's bodybuilding or, you know, I've done different kinds of teaching in my life. And at my previous job, I used to do a lot of lectures and seminars on AI or whatever new technology. I liked sharing that with people. So now I want to do with coaching. You know, I want to take what I've known all this time, stay engaged, and help other people, you know, accomplish their goals, whatever they are. If they want to get on stage or just be in better shape. So the transference of what I used to do into sharing that with other people as much as I can.
I definitely, I can definitely identify with that as well.
Yeah.
You know, especially for guys like yourself and me who have seen all of these sort of trends come in and out of bodybuilding and the way that like the approach to diet or the approach to training has changed over the years.
Yeah.
And you know you know, some things work better than others, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, being able to share that, and you know, that's something that, you know, I think we're both very passionate about, and that's kind of why we put this thing together, right? You know, to share that info. So hopefully over the course of time we can find stuff that people are interested in learning about.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be really, really satisfying for me to be able to add some kind of value to other people's lives, and help them get through the adventures of bodybuilding, whatever that may mean to them. Yeah.
Well, I think you know, I mean, of course we can talk about that some other time too, but just the individual variances, like I think with bodybuilding, the thing that's so unique about it is that there's sort of like some generally accepted principles. Now I sound like an accountant, but some generally acceptable principles that you can start with. But then after that, things have to be very individualized, whether you're talking about diet, training, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's why it's really, really important that people know all of these different styles exist and all of these different starting points exist. And, you know, we're all trying to get to a similar place, but you know, it's just all of these different approaches and everything that can be taken along the way.
Yeah.
With bodybuilding, I think that, you know, I would say over the course of the past, well, the time I've been involved with it, it's been great to see the sport evolve. And I think that, controversial, but I think that the sport does actually continue to improve. Because, you know, even though like some people complain about the people looking like math monsters, but they've perfected the art of math monstering. Or not perfected, but we're getting closer to it, right? When you look at a guy like Hadi Choopan or Derek Lunsford, right? Like these guys are incredible. You know, they wouldn't be there if it weren't for the knowledge that was gained over the time and the refinement of, you know, training, nutrition, supplementation, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we're very lucky to be able to see that, but also that, you know, I think that is a really good justification for really trying to learn all that you possibly can about the sport and understanding how things have evolved so that, you know, you can use what is the best for you. Right. Because we all have an individual journey that we're trying to figure out here, basically.
To use the old expression, I think we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Absolutely.
But that will only take you so far because the individual is highly variable. And once you do, after you stand on that giant's shoulders, it's up to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Matt, thanks so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
You know, it's really interesting. And I love hearing about how different your background was from mine. And the fact that, you know, we're both sitting here today, you know, and like, actually, there's one other one in there that I wanted to pick on. We'll leave it for another episode. But I want to know how you went from being an English major, first of all, a kinesiology major, to an English major, working in AI, lecturing on AI in a finance firm, working for a tech department. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I am highly flexible.
Yeah, wow. Well, anyway, it has been just fascinating.
Thank you.
Learning all this stuff, and you know, thanks for sharing everything that you did. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'll just say it. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you have comments, please leave them below. If you have any questions, please leave them below. If there's anything that you'd like to learn about, please put them below. we will definitely respond to anything that's in there. And we are basically trying to come up with ideas for things that you want to learn about. So please ask us, and we would love to share what we've learned over the past 50, 60 years before. God, I don't even
40 plus for me since I picked up a weight. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So if there's anything that we can answer for you, please put it down in the comments and we will get back to you or address it in a future video.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Craig. Thanks, everybody. We look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.